Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Brownie from the Young Zings. There's a big tournament this past weekend. You know I'm right on top of it, covering the results and my thoughts on them. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And this past weekend was YCS Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic, over in Europe. And there's some pretty interesting results. Before I dive right into them, I just want to point out the economy of Europe, their tournament coverage is so good compared to the North American economy because they give you everything. They give you the representation of decks that enter the event, the representation of decks that made day 2, and the decks that made top 32 cut, and they have a live stream going on right now, and they're about at top 8 of the making of this video. Like, that's such a big deal. Why doesn't Konami of North America ever do that? They sometimes rarely give you the they usually do. They sometimes neglect to give you the top 32, which is like the most important part. But like, is it really that hard to ask for percentages of what decks enter the event? Because those are like the percentages I usually look for in the live stream. That's a big deal. Like, I don't know, it's nice if I'm ever like doing homework and just like watch a live stream in the corner of my eye. Like, I don't know, is it really too much to ask for? Is it really that hard? Jeez. All right. But that's for another day. So let's go into the deck breakdown of all the decks that entered the event. And we have 254 Perform Pal, 205 Monarch, 177 Cosmo, 79 Atlantean, 33 Burning Abyss, 24 Magician, 14 Phantom Knight, and then 199 other decks. And it was about 985 decks in total. And I'm surprised the Phantom Knights weren't put in other. But wow, look at all the Perform Pal. I'm surprised. I would think that Monarch would be the most played deck, that or Cosmo. Because that's kind of what I saw when I went to regionals. But no, Perform Pal is being played a whole lot, and that's a pretty big difference between them and Monarch. And in even though Monarch is budget, remember that a lot of the guys who go to these events, they're all like competitive players, and you have to pay to travel. They're usually not budget players. They're usually pretty serious about this game. So an expensive deck really isn't an issue. So they're not gonna like sell for Monarch unless they think it's a really good deck. They're not going to settle for it just because it's budget. So Perform Pal being very widely played is pretty interesting. Let's get into the most interesting part of the event, which is the top 32 breakdown. And I have it right here. It is 12 Perform Pal, 7 Cosmo, 6 Monarch, 4 Burning Abyss, 1 Atlantean, 1 Phantom Knight, and 1 other deck. And I did some research, and that other deck was a Monarch FTK deck or a Librarian, a Magical Royal Library FTK deck. And that's terrifying. I hope that we don't find out that deck list soon. Otherwise, DN is going to be all library FTK. So let's get into the results right here. So 12 Perform Pal made the top 32. That's pretty big. I didn't really think they were the best deck going into this event. I had thought that either Cosmo or Monarch was the best deck, but that's a pretty big difference between the two. And I went and calculated the YG organization, they are starting doing TCG event coverage, and they have some neat percentages right here, but they're a little bit off, so I had to calculate them myself. So for decks entering the event, I had 25.8% of them were Perform Pal, 20.8% were Monarch, 17.9 were Cosmo, 8.02 were Mermail, and 3.35 were Burning Abyss. Compare that to the top 32, which they did get right. Then we have 37.5 for Perform Pal, 21.8 for Cosmo, 18.8 for Monarch, 12.5 for Burning Abyss, 13.13 for Mermail, 13.13 for Phantom Knight, and 13.13 for that last deck, that last degenerate deck. And I also got the percent difference between all of them. So Perform Pal got plus 11.7 points. That means compared to the 25.8% of decks that enter the event, the percentage of decks that made top 32 were up 11.7 points. Not percent, because that it doesn't like make sense from a mathematical perspective. For Monarch, they had a minus 2.0 difference, which is relatively interesting. Cosmo had a plus 3.9. Mermail had a minus 4.89, and Burning Abyss had a plus 9.15. That's some pretty interesting results. Okay, so let's get right into it. Perform Pal really does look like the best deck right now, actually, given these results. The fact that they had the plus 11.7 difference between the representation of decks that entered and decks that made top 32. And it's just like there's so many players playing in the event and so many players made top 32. That's a, I mean, the difference between 7 and 12 is really, really big for YCS. Remember, I say this all the time, YCS is the highest form of, the highest level of tournament play in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. So this is some pretty big evidence. What's changed though for them? I mean, the adjusted list you would think that like would have knocked them off the face of the earth until we realized that like Performer Pal definitely isn't dead. And looking from these results, yeah, they're definitely not dead. They're definitely still really really going. Um, nice adjusted list, Konami. No, but seriously, I guess we have to look at Burning Abyss, though. They had a pretty strong showing. Relatively low in terms of the decks that enter the event for just 33 decks out of all the 1,000 players were there. But a lot of them, 4 of them made top 32, which is, that's really, really good. So I guess they're doing better than I guess some people would think. They're getting Beatrice in March. So that's pretty big news. I couldn't figure out Burning Abyss. I got to see these Burning Abyss deck lists. I tried it was too hard. But if Perform Pal is going to be doing super well, Burning Abyss does have a reasonable matchup against the Perform Pal decks. Just Cosmic Monarch is just unbelievably hard. So therefore, the better Perform Pal gets, the better Burning Abyss is going to get. But if Cosmo Monarch remains the top 2 decks, Burning Abyss is not going to have a fun time because, like, what are you supposed to do? You have Monarchs floodgating the crap out of you, and everybody's shuffling all your guys, and Cosmo having big untargetable beaters that just, like, you can't really do anything about. And they OTK you, and Cosmo Mojo outs your Utopic Future, so it's just, like, it's not a fun time. So I guess, like, where do we go from here is the most important way to go. The sets that come out between now and Nationals, which is in July. I know that's so far away, but, like, I guess when I think of this event, I'm thinking, like, what's going to change from now? The sets that come out between then and now, we have, in March, we have Premium Gold 3, which I didn't think was going to have that much difference because, in terms of the competitive scene, because I didn't think that any new cards in there were very noticeable, but I was wrong because Beatrice is coming in there, so Burning Abyss is getting a huge bump. But then we have Cosmo in the TCG, so it might be a lot different than it was in the OCG. We have the Millennium Pack coming out, I think in April. I'm not entirely sure about that one. Then we have the starter deck for Perform Pal coming in May. And all the Perform Pal cards, they're all really bad, but what could change is that if in the OCG, if they reprint Pendulum Sorcerer, that means he's probably going to get reprinted in the TCG too. And that just means more players can play the deck, especially with all the Draco Slayers being reprinted to Premium Gold 2. And that'll help Perform Pal's representation a lot and make them doing a lot better in the top cut. And that, like that's a pretty big deal. So those are all the major sets coming out between now and Nationals that we know about. Oh, I'm sorry. There's also Shining Victories coming out in May. So I guess the TCG exclusives are going to be the deciding factor. The OCG imports will too, and I would imagine those are DDD cards. So DDDs are already like not that bad of a deck, but if they get the stuff they need from Raging Masters, and then they also get like a starter deck. I think the starter deck comes right after Nationals. I can't remember. Yeah, but DDDs could, get the imports they need from Shining Victories. But the TCG exclusives that Cosmo gets is really going to be the deciding factor. If they get like a Dark Eclipser that negates spells, that deck is going to be like, I don't know, it could be neck and neck, if not better than Perform Pal. That'd be pretty insane. Perform Pal is going to be getting the Odd-Eyes Unicorn and some Dracos. They're going to getting Lecter or the Rector Pendulum, the new Drake Overlord guy, who's actually like not that bad. And there's some other interesting cards in Shining Victories, but Shining Victories isn't going to shake up the game like Brick as a Shadow did, even not like Dimension to Chaos did, assuming the TCG exclusives like aren't as good as Dimension to Chaos ones, like mainly just Dark Destroyer. If they don't get a card on Dark Destroyer level, like it's not gonna be that big of a set. I don't know. I mean, they can't really import anything that's really that big besides DDD cards. TCG exclusives though are just the deciding factor. So those are my thoughts on YCS Prague. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think of Perform Pal? Do you think it's the best deck right now? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.